never believed in ghosts. That was until I experienced something that changed my perspective forever. This is my story. It was a chilly autumn evening when I decided to take a walk through the old park near my house. The park had always been a place of solace for me, a quiet retreat from the chaos of daily life. But that evening, it felt different. The air was thick with an eerie silence, and the usual rustling of leaves seemed to have ceased. As I walked deeper into the park, I noticed a peculiar fog rolling in, shrouding the path ahead. The fog seemed almost alive, swirling and shifting in unnatural patterns. I shrugged it off, attributing it to the changing weather, and continued my walk. I reached the old playground, a place that had been abandoned for years. The swings creaked in the wind, and the merry-go-round spun slowly, though there was no breeze. A sense of unease settled over me, but I pushed it aside and sat on a bench, trying to enjoy the solitude. That's when I heard it. A faint whisper, barely audible, but unmistakably human. I turned around, expecting to see someone, but the park was empty. My heart began to race as the whisper grew louder, more insistent. It seemed to be calling my name. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. There was no response, just the whispering, now accompanied by a soft, ghostly laughter. I stood up, ready to leave, but my legs felt heavy, as if they were rooted to the ground. Suddenly, I saw a figure emerging from the fog. It was a woman, dressed in a tattered white dress, her hair matted and her eyes hollow. She moved towards me with an unnatural grace, her feet barely touching the ground. I wanted to run, but I was paralyzed with fear. As she drew closer, I could see her face more clearly. It was twisted in a grotesque smile, her eyes filled with a sorrow that seemed to pierce my soul. She reached out a hand, and I felt a cold chill run through my body. "Help me," she whispered, her voice echoing in my mind. "Help me find peace." I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. I managed to break free from my paralysis and stumbled backwards, tripping over a root and falling to the ground. When I looked up, she was gone, the fog dissipating as quickly as it had appeared. I scrambled to my feet and ran out of the park, not stopping until I was safely inside my house. I locked the door and collapsed on the floor, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't shake the image of her face, the sorrow in her eyes. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, heard her whispering. I knew I had to go back, to find out who she was and what she wanted. The next day, I returned to the park, armed with a flashlight and a sense of determination. I searched the playground, the benches, the paths, but there was no sign of her. Just as I was about to give up, I noticed something glinting in the dirt. I bent down and picked it up, a locket old and tarnished. Inside was a photograph of the woman, smiling and happy, a stark contrast to the ghostly figure I had seen. I took the locket to the local library, hoping to find some answers. After hours of searching through old newspapers and records, I found an article about a woman who had gone missing in the park decades ago. Her name was Emily, and she had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Her body was never found. I knew then that I had to help her find peace. I returned to the park that night, holding the locket tightly. I called out to her, telling her that I knew who she was and that I wanted to help. The fog rolled in again, and she appeared, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft and gentle. "I can rest now." With that, she vanished, the fog lifting and the park returning to its usual tranquility. I felt a sense of relief, knowing that I had helped her find peace. But I also knew that I would never forget the haunting of the park and the ghostly figure of Emily who had changed my life forever.